Hi, I'm Paul from the Studio Rats. In this video we're going to be looking at the Guitarist Guide to Reverb. So what is Reverb? Reverb is a way of emulating space. Now originally in studios we used things like echo chambers, which were basically hard rooms that were tiled or concrete rooms that had a speaker in one corner, a microphone in the other. A signal was fed into the speaker and the microphone would then pick up the ambience of the room. So that was the 50s. Now things quickly evolved into spring reverbs, which is basically a spring tank with springs in it. A signal was fed into the springs and then a pickup was on the other side. That used to pick up the sound of the springs, and that emulated a space sound that you get in a lot of amplifiers, notably from companies like Fender. Things quickly evolved into plate reverbs. Basically a signal was fed into one end of these huge plates of metal, a pickup was on the other end, and that used to pick up the vibration of the metal and then fed into the mixing console. The 70s and 80s came along, and that's where we tended to get digital reverbs, which we're still using today. If I demonstrate reverb by strumming the guitar, this gives us the impression that the amplifier and the guitar are in a much larger space than what I'm recording in, which is a small studio. I'm going to be using a couple of different pieces of equipment to demonstrate the reverbs. The first one is this MXR reverb. It's a really high quality compact pedal, it sounds great. And the other piece of equipment that I'm going to be using for the reverbs is the Neural DSP Quad Cortex. Now I could be using any multi-effects unit. I'm not saying that the Neural DSP Quad Cortex is better than anything else, but the great thing about the reverb inside the Neural DSP Quad Cortex is it has all of the parameters you'd expect to find on any other multi-effects unit. Let's start off with the MXR pedal reverb. Now, pedal reverbs, they really only have a few controls as there's not a lot of space to fit everything on. The sort of things you can change on this pedal, the sort of things you're going to find on a lot of small compact pedals. So first of all, we can choose between our different types of reverb. So there's plate, here's spring. The next type of reverb on this pedal is called epic. The next one is a modulated reverb. This is my favourite, and this is the sort of reverb that I'm going to be showing on the Quad Cortex. Then we've got a room. The next one is pad. Now that's like your shimmer type of reverb. Shimmer reverbs are slightly different, and they've been around now probably for about 10 years, but it's a reverb that also has some pitch effect going on as well. So it often has like a lower octave and a higher octave as well. Let's quickly go back to the mod setting. Now, obviously, we've only got 3 controls on here. Basically, we've got a tone control, so we can make the reverb duller or brighter. We've got decay control, so that is the length of the reverb. Let's turn it up full. And we've also got a mix control. Now that is the amount of the effect. So if I turn it left, it's off. And if I turn it up, we've got 100% wet. Now setting around 50% works great. Modern digital compact pedals like this tend to have a real high quality effects engine in it. Quality wise, you can expect that a modern pedal like this will easily compete with something like the multi-effects Quad Cortex. So that's the simple controls that you'd get on something like a compact pedal. Now let's have a look at the more sort of in-depth reverbs, like something you get in a multi-effects unit, something like the Neural DSP Quad Cortex. So first of all, I'm just going to turn off the modulation speed and the modulation depth, as I'm going to come to those later on, as that's more of a lexicon sort of style reverb. So I've turned those off at the moment. And I'm also going to bring back the pre-delay, as I'm going to explain that next. The decay is the length of the reverb. So if I turn the decay all the way back, so it's 1 second, you can hear we get like a room sort of sound from it. Let me turn the reverb off, you can hear the difference. And bring it in. As a rule with reverbs on guitar, I tend to use about 2 seconds. So I'm just going to turn it up just for the moment to about 2 seconds. The reason why I bring it up to 2 seconds is because you tend to get more of a whole type of sound, a whole type of feel, as opposed to the 1 second, which is more of a room type of feel. Now I could go the other way and turn this right up, and the maximum's 10 seconds and it sounds like this. Let's bring it back to a more sensible level, but I'm going to keep it higher than I'd normally have it, say around about sort of 4 seconds. The next control is pre-delay. Pre-delay is the amount of clean signal that comes through before the reverb kicks in. This is with the pre-delay at 1 millisecond. As soon as I play the guitar, the reverb as an effect is instant. Now let's take it the other way. If I turn it up full, you see we've got this delay that comes in before the reverb. Pre-delay is really handy if you are using bigger reverbs, because it lets the clean signal of the guitar come through before the reverb, and the reverb then doesn't interfere with the guitar. Pre-delays can be set to the tempo of the song, but what I'm going to do with this pre-delay is just to bring it back, so it's about 60 milliseconds. I'm going to leave modulation depth and speed just at the moment and come back to that later on. The next control is high pass. This is the amount of low end information that's going to come through on the reverb. So for instance, if I turn this high pass all the way up, it's going to take all the bottom end out of the reverb up to 800 Hertz. That's making the reverb sound a bit thin, but the reason why high and low pass filters are so useful in reverb is that you can shave off the top and the bottom frequencies just to make the guitar, or whatever you're reverberating, cut through a bit more. Let's bring it back to a sensible level. Low pass is the exact opposite of high pass. This controls how much high end information you want in your reverb. So if I bring this back, personally, I don't like a massive amount of high end in my reverbs, as it tends to make the reverb sound a bit dated, a little bit too 80s. So what I'm going to do is to bring that back to a sensible level, say about 5K. And And the next control is mix. This is the amount of reverb in your guitar signal. You can think of this like a parallel effect. So if I bring back the mix to 0, it's clean. If I turn the mix up fully, the guitar signal is just reverb. So it's good to get a balance of that. The next control is trails. This is controlling when you're changing patches or turning the reverb on and off. It's just going to let the decay of the reverb continue on even when the reverb is switched off. Let's go back to modulation, speed and depth. Now, modulation started to get used in the 80s with companies like Lexicon creating reverbs, where they actually put modulation in their reverbs, and it really gave it some extra dimension and a bit of extra width. So if I turn up the modulation speed and the depth, let's turn both up about halfway. If I play a chord, let's turn the speed up a little bit more. You can hear that the decay on the reverb is modulating. It's got a chorus effect on it. And because we've got the speed up quite high, it's quite pronounced. Let's turn the depth up as well. Let's turn them both up full. I tend to like fairly slow modulation speeds, but fairly large depth, as we're going to get a nice wide chorus effect on the reverb. Now, because we're using it inside the reverb, it's never that pronounced to the point where you'd think it is like a chorus pedal. Here's the guitar sound with the reverb on. And if I turn it off, you can hear how bland the guitar sounds without the reverb on it. Let's turn it back on. I really hope you guys got something out of this. If there are other effects that you want explained, please let me know in the comments below. If you did get something out of this video, don't forget to like and subscribe, click on the bell button, and you'll be notified of any future video that comes out from the Studio Rats. I'm Paul, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.